Hello, welcome back. So, during the break, it came to my attention that some of us have been to New York City. So, New York City is an amazing place, but it is also overwhelming. And to be there while it was the epicenter of the pandemic with a small family was out of control. So I thought I'd share a little about that. We actually lived in South Harlem when COVID came, and crime rate soared. So the last night in Harlem, I was bringing literally the last box of our stuff to our car, and right in front of me, a guy started shooting another guy. It was a gang shooting. And that was my last night in Harlem. So he moved up 50 blocks of the island to Hudson Heights, which I talked about earlier. And I was there for 8 months alone in an apartment after my wife and kids, left to be away from, COVID in New York City, and it was just very, very difficult. And actually, the hardest thing was, it was also talked about during the break in Newark, and I flew out of Newark to come here, and just getting to the airport, while New York was still the epicenter of the pandemic, and just making everything happen was so hard. But I got to the airport, and imagine this. So I am waiting there, ready to get the boarding pass. And at this point, I had gotten there 2 hours before the flight, which was fine. But there was so much tension and so much just, paranoia about COVID and all this stuff, that these three US football linebacker-sized guys again, imagine I'm in front of the person that works for the airline to get my boarding pass. They just pushed me out of the way, threatened me, and pushed my suitcases out of the way. So what do when you are there was nothing that was going to stop me from catching this flight, but at the same time, you have to deal with real life things that are happening. So I had to use Napoleon tactics to get on the plane. So in other words, I didn't, it wasn't like some Jackie Chan movie. I didn't do, kung fu or whatever, and beat up the guys. Instead, I noticed that when this happened, the guy in charge of the plane counter, that's really what we call it, plane counter, and another guy that was in charge there, they ran away in fear. So imagine this. So these guys did this to me, and instead of helping me or telling the guys, hey, you can't just threaten someone's life and whatever. So I thought, okay, the one thing I do know is that fear, is a factor. So it sounds like, what are you going to do with that? Well, my goal was to get the police, because, these guys didn't just come in line, they threatened me and whatever. So, because these guys had responded to fear, as soon as the police showed up with military-style weapons, instead of doing nothing, these guys behind the counter actually started moving like chickens without a head. And that's most of the story. I actually didn't get my boarding pass until 15 minutes before the plane was supposed to take off. So imagine, I am completely on the other side of the airport, haven't been through security yet. And as we know, these days, if my flight was at 2:40, 2:40 is not when you show up at the gates. 2:40 could be when the plane is moving. So I ran, I had a baby pram I was pushing. I ran, the fastest I've ever run in my life. And I had to get through security, and people were cutting me in line still, even though I have a baby pram and telling people that I missed my plane. Anyway, it was crazy, but I did make it to Australia, and even got through a quarantine in Sydney where it was bizarre because there was a guard sitting at my door. So like, you know, in quarantine, everyone can picture that. But what I didn't imagine is that, like, literally, like, I couldn't, if I had gone out the door, I would have been arrested. Like, there was literally a guy sitting on a chair for 2 weeks right outside my door. I thought that was a little extreme, but I guess I made it here. And so here's my commitment to you that next time I will make fun of every single country of anyone that comes here. So we're going to be meeting every Tuesday, 8 o'clock. Thank you for coming. You guys are the best, and this venue is the best. So thank you to the audience. Have a good night. Thank you guys. 2 times.